while the Roadster might look great, but you wear it for 12, 13 hours, you will feel how uncomfortable it is at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? So are they engineered for specifically that 12, 13 hour comfort? Is that something that you will feel at the end of every day?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Next Week Brand Interviews. Today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Ganesh Balakrishnan, the co-founder of Flatheads and somebody who's had a very fruitful entrepreneurship journey over the last decade or so. Welcome to the show, sir, and thank you for taking out the time and talking to us. First things first, sir, very big congratulations are in order for the latest round of funding for
Thank you very
Flatheads.
much. Funding is just a small milestone in the journey. I think the
Yeah.
work starts now.
But an important one at that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I'll try and take you back to the very beginning, sir. Your journey into entrepreneurship after having worked in the corporate sector for about a good 10-15 years, and then getting into entrepreneurship because that was something that almost like a bug bit you, which everybody calls it that, but in your case it was almost literally true.
True. Even in my corporate journey, I have been involved with a lot of intrapreneurial ventures, which is
Yeah.
basically little startup kind of environments within corporates. So my first job, I was part of something called a leadership program in a company called Ingersoll Rand, which was based in the US. So we worked across three different business units in 3 years, trying to get an exposure across industries and across disciplines, right? So there I worked in a couple of new initiatives that they had launched, and then later on when I came back to India in 2004, I was one of the guys who set up their entire engineering center in Bangalore. Right, so that was a brand new start. It was me and my boss running it like a startup, pretty much, right? So that was my first stint into starting up something on from scratch. Post my MBA, also I joined Bain and Company, which was just a 1 year old organization in Gurgaon at that time in Delhi. And there it grew from a small firm to a decently large firm over the 3 years that I was there. So saw that growth journey as well. And then post that, joined Honeywell India in their technology strategy and corporate strategy team, where our specific mandate was to create a local business with local applications for Honeywell within the larger Honeywell umbrella, right? So understanding customers, building a business case for new products and solutions, and then launching them in the market. So that was what I did there. So effectively, it has been starting up businesses all along through my
Yeah.
corporate journey as well. And at Honeywell, I met my co-founder again. We were together in college in IIT Bombay a long time
Yeah.
ago, and then we went our separate ways. In Honeywell, we worked together to build that incubation cell, if you will. And both of us, he comes from a design background, I come from a business background. So together, it was a good complementary, skill sets with left brain and right brain working together. We said, if we are doing this inside Honeywell, why don't we go and do it outside ourselves? And that's how the entrepreneurial journey started. So it was a combination of is the time right for getting into entrepreneurship rather than staying under a corporate umbrella, and did you find the right partner or not, right? So both those things clicked, and then we decided to take off. Once we started, we did a couple of startups that did not work in retail analytics, and we tried one e-commerce stint in
Yeah.
organic foods and specialty foods as well. That did not take off because the infrastructure for e-commerce was not there at that time. Then
Okay.
we pivoted to mobile payments. We launched a mobile
Yeah.
payments app called Momo,
Yeah.
which was mobile payments in restaurants, retail stores, toll roads, and so on. Eat, shop, and commute. So 2013, when 3G had just launched, it was a big white space. Nobody else was doing that, right? Now, what you do with Google Pay or Paytm at every store was
Yeah.
completely open at that time. So we said, hey, this is a good opportunity for us to build something that does not exist, right? So it was almost a disruptive kind of a payment solution with your mobile
Yeah.
phone. Great journey there. We raised VC funding. We grew it to almost 1 million subscribers before we exited to ShopClose, e-commerce platform.
Yeah.
They had just raised their unicorn funding round at that time. So once we joined ShopClose, it was a different kind of a growth journey. rather than starting from scratch, it was how do you play at scale, right? You are already pan India, you are already catering to lakhs and lakhs of orders. How do you take that to the next level, right? So growing the merchant ecosystem, growing the platform, and running a lot more business with very aggressive growth targets is what we had done. And once we were there, we saw a lot of merchants actually building micro brands in the lifestyle space, especially in fashion and apparel. We saw a lot of small merchants who were actually especially in ethnic wear, right? There were a lot of people who were trying to build their own small brands on the marketplace itself, right? We said, this is interesting. So then we started researching a lot more into the D2C space, and that's where we said, hey, you know what? There are Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal, right? These are horizontal marketplaces. They're already to scale. Next level is the vertical marketplaces like Myntra, like Nykaa. These are also starting to get to scale. Right. The next story that has to build is the D2C brands, where the brands themselves emerge with a clear value proposition, catering to specific kind of audiences. Right. So we said, that's an interesting journey to go after, and that's how we started thinking about Flatheads. And once we got our lock-in done in 2018 is when we started getting serious about building this out. So both of us left Shopclose and then started brainstorming on what is the need that we need to cater to, and how do we build a new brand in the Indian ecosystem. So that was the thought process. So yeah, effectively my journey has been fairly seamless in my mind, at least, right? From corporate to startups. It wasn't a midlife crisis or something that took over. But yes, the journey as an entrepreneur has been very, very different. When you're inside a company and you still are getting those paychecks on a monthly basis, it's a very different feeling versus running your own thing and paying employees rather than receiving those paychecks, right? So it has been a very, very fulfilling journey and a lot of fun for sure. With its ups and downs and stresses and survival situations as well. But yeah, it's been about a decade now, and yeah, thoroughly enjoying it. Like all set for the next decade as well with Flatheads.
That sounds like quite a journey, to be fair, and I'm sure anybody listening out there will probably take a lot from it. So the Windsleeve happened, then Momo happened, then you worked at Shopclose as well. In all of this, before Flatheads happened, what were the major learnings that you probably took from this particular time and then were ready to just go with Flatheads?
Sure. Number one is understanding the market and then timing it right. I think that is very, very essential. The first time we did our retail analytics with Windsleeve, we realized that while we had done some research on the market, monetization was something which was still a question mark, and that's what happened. We could not monetize, right? So that was a big learning there. Once we got into Momo, again, the market was brand new. We were creating the market, especially for that kind of payments, digital payments to happen. So maybe looking back, maybe we were a little early into the market where digital payments itself was very nascent. Right, so that is it is important to understand the dynamics of the market, because when you're a startup, you are quite constrained with resources, whether it is time, money, people, whatever, right? So when that happens, you are the chances of success really increase when there are tailwinds with you. There are things that are supporting you in the macro environment, right? So that was one big learning. Second learning was building the team. In Windsleeve, we were pretty much going it alone, right? We didn't have a big team as such. And once we started Momo, the importance of getting the right team together in order to build the business was really apparent. So we had 5 co-founders. All of us had complementary skill sets, individual roles that were defined for us to build that out. And that worked really well, right? So the core team, the initial first 10 employees that we had along with the founders were critical to the growth of the organization. As long as that mindset, that culture, that ethos was defined, then it became easier, right, to follow on, build more people as part of the team, and build the growth engine of the company as well. So that was another big learning in terms of getting the right team together in order to build that out. And the third thing is, of course, economics. Understanding unit economics, understanding a way to make money and way to make money profitably, right? And once you have a little bit of a sustainable economic model, then pushing the growth pedal is something that was a big learning all across the board. Once we moved to ShopClues, we saw that at scale, right? Where rather than doing 10,000 transactions per day, are you doing lakhs of transactions per day? When you're doing that, what are the challenges that come in terms of running your economic model, your business model itself, right? So those are the kind of things that were big learnings along the entire entrepreneurial journey, which we are incorporating into Flatheads from day one.
Okay. So you take all of these learnings, you take all of this experience, and once you exit ShopClues, you and your co-founder, how did you settle on this particular niche? Because I'm sure that you have mentioned in a couple of other interviews as well that there were a lot of different ideas that at play, especially immediately after exiting ShopClues. How did you settle on this particular niche?
Sure. It is a combination of what your passion is and what the market opportunity is like, right? It is not just market bada hai to ghus jayenge types. Right. So we were looking at what we will enjoy doing for the next decade of our life, if not longer. Right? Because this is a life's work at the end of the day, right? So we are not college kids straight out trying to do something, and if it doesn't work, then we'll figure it out kind of thing. This is something that we have set our minds to, that we will run for the next 10-15 years of our life, hopefully to retire at the end of it, right? So that's our motivation is a little different when we are starting this up. So it had to be something that we really enjoyed, and that's where footwear was one category that really caught our attention, because my co-founder Utkarsh is a designer, and he is a sneaker freak. He has more than 150 pairs of shoes at any point in time, right? So crazy that way. He actually cuts open shoes to see what's inside, what construction is there. We do trend spotting in shoes. Every time we used to go to a mall to watch a movie or something, 50% of the time we will be spending in shoe stores and apparel stores with footwear in them, trying to figure out what the latest trend is and trying to predict what's going to come next, right? So it was a fun game we used to do. So it was something that definitely tickled our inner sense of saying, oh, this is something that can definitely be worked on for the next 10 years. The second part is the market itself. If you look at the face of it, the footwear market looks fairly crowded. But then you start deep diving into the market. There is India, which is very traditional in the leather side of things. In the formal side of things, there are lots of brands and a lot of factories that are set up to do that as well. But then you move into the performance and the casual range. Most of the brands that people would want to buy, at least in the urban ethos, is still very much driven by international brands in terms of aspiration, right? So starting with Puma, which is the biggest guy, then there's Nike, Adidas, of course. In the casual space, Crocs has built their business over the last 10 years. Skechers has built their business over the last 10 years in India. All these people bring specific brand identities and personalities and cater to specific kind of requirements with the audience, right? So we said, and if you look at the Indian brands, they are still very much in the mass functional, tikta hai, paisa vasool hai.
Exactly.
The worth it. It is more a commodity kind of a play, right? It's a very functional thing. कि पैर में कुछ डालना है, नंगे पैर नहीं जाना है, इसलिए ये खरीदेंगे, right? That's pretty much the way we have looked at footwear always, at least in this casual space, right? And brands are also like that, very functional. You look at if they're selling at less than 1,000 rupees, chances are they will not, they're not manufacturing for more than 250 rupees or 300 rupees maximum. Us price pe there is no product development, innovation, or anything like that is going into the shoe, right? It is effectively just building in high volumes, trying to get economies of scale, and then pushing those high volumes through all the distribution channels, like what an FMCG company would do effectively, right? So that has been the game so far. We said, you go to China, for example, right now, and look at the way the industry has evolved. You can actually see brands like Li-Ning you would have heard of, right? They were the sponsors of the Beijing Olympics, and they're big in the badminton and sports category at least. There's Li-Ning, there's Peak, there's Anta, there's 360. There are a bunch of these brands. combined, if you look at their market shares, they're as good as the Nike, Puma, Adidas is out there, right?
Yeah.
And they understand the local ethos. They're building products. They have a brand identity and a personality. They're building it specifically for that audience. The price points are much better. Whereas the Nike, Puma, Adidas are more doing what their global lines are. They are still launching the Air Jordans and the Kyrie Irvings out there. So there is a very clear need for understanding the local audience and building products for them, right?
Yeah.
And that is, you can see it happening, in China at scale. We said, yeah, if that is the case, then in India also it has to happen, right? Kitne dinon tak we will do the Sparks, Paragon, Relaxo campus story, right?
Yeah.
It is high time that we bring some differentiation, some innovation, some specific understanding of the Indian consumer and build for them, right? So that was the thought. And if you look at the market, we are, just by virtue of population, we are the second largest, consumer and producer of footwear in the world. First being China, of course. And if you look at the casual premium market itself, that market is more than $1 billion in size, and it's almost 1.2 billion as of last year, as of 2 years ago, and it has been growing, steadily, almost at about 20% per year. So in the next 4 to 5 years, it's going to double, right? So there is enough and more scope to play and create a brand in that space in the next decade, in the coming decade. Which will actually, you don't have to take market share from other people because the market itself is doubling, right? So effectively, new markets are being created every 4 years. So if that is the case, then you can actually create something with a value proposition that works. That doesn't necessarily, try to take market share from the existing incumbents, but build your own position in the industry. Right, so that was the way we thought about it, and we are not from the standard footwear industry. So we went in and we thought about it from first principles, and then came up with what the insight is and what we need to do in order to solve for that insight.
So I think lifestyle changes in terms of like the expectation from a shoe, like you said, for the longest time it has been formal, or then on the other spectrum of it all, ki tick jai bas, maybe 6-8 months or whatever. I think the lifestyle changes are also like where people are more open to the casual shoe as a value proposition and as something that probably people want to wear out and wear to work and all as well. So but when entering this, once you decided, once you actually looked at all the factors, entering into the industry, there were already like a lot of different brands on your Myntras and your Amazons that are doing this casual shoe. And what kind of an effort did you have to put in terms of spreading more awareness around your brand and why this might be a more viable option than maybe like XYZ brand on Myntra that is selling in a cut copy based manner for 700-800 bucks?
Yeah. So that is still a work in progress, to be honest. I don't think we've really established ourselves as a category player with a very specific proposition. We are still talking about it, but I don't think the voice has been heard as much, right? So brands take time to build. People need to understand. So while there are so many brands out there, if I just ask you, name, I don't know, 3 brands that you would be comfortable wearing to work along with your jeans, and something that you would wear for 12-13 hours post work as well, if you want to go out, hang out with your friends at a pub, or have dinner, or go for a date night or something like that. What kind of shoe brands would you be comfortable wearing in that scenario?
For me personally, I've always been more of a sports shoe person. So that extended to the whole Nike sneakers and Puma sneakers and all of that. I've seen a couple of brands like maybe the Roadsters and all, but I haven't really used them for like 12-13 hours at a stretch in a day.
Exactly, right. So you probably can think of 2 or 3 brands in that space. Maybe your Skechers, which has that walk range. Maybe a Clarks, maybe a Hush Puppies, which has a non-leather range, right? So those kind of shoes will fit that bill, where it is dressy enough that you can wear to work. It will not look like you're wearing a sports shoe straight out of the gym when you walked into work. At the same time, it is not formal leather or suede leather slip-ons that you're wearing from the semi-formal era. you're wearing jeans to work, then you need something that matches your
Very
jeans.
fair.
So
Very fair. Very fair.
that is one aspect of it, which is the look and feel of the shoe. The second is the comfort angle, right? If you're wearing it for 12, 13 hours, then while the Roadster might look great, but you wear it for 12, 13 hours, you will feel how uncomfortable it is at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? So are they engineered for specifically that 12, 13 hour comfort? Is that something that you will feel at the end of every day? 5 times out of 7 when you're stepping out of home to go to work, which is the default shoe that you're picking out of your closet, right? So that is the question that was still unanswered, is what we felt. There was nobody talking that language. This is a great work shoe that you can wear for 12 hours a day, right? So that is a positioning that is still very open. The urban working professional is looking for something like that to go with his casual attire, and and we did our ethnographic researches with people's closets. We took a lot of pictures of people's closets, right, and tried to understand which are the shoes that they wear and what do they wear them for, right? And that space was fairly empty, right? People would wear Benettons, they would wear Zara Mans, they would wear Roadsters, as you mentioned, they would wear Sparks, right? A lot of those had sports kind of looks and silhouettes, or they looked a little too flashy for work kind of scenarios, or they were not comfortable at all, right? You would buy them because they look stylish, but then at the end of the day, every time you're picking that shoe up in the morning, you're looking at it saying, "Is this the shoe I really want to wear? Because I'm going to be standing in it for the next 12 hours." So that space we saw was an empty area, right? The third thing is the Indian tropical climate itself, right? So, what do you do for this hot, humid climate which exists for majority of the year in this situation, right? When sports shoes talk about comfort, they add padding into your shoes, right? So they put foam in between the outer layer, which is polyester, and there's an inner lining, cloth lining. In between, they put foam. So it's effectively, wrapping your foot in pillows. That's effectively what that shoe is, right? The problem with that is, while it gives you a lot of cushioning, but it is not breathable at all, right?
Exactly.
And your feet are typically sweating through the day, right? ऐसा लगता है कि पैर माइक्रोवेव से निकाला है at the end of the day, right? It's sweaty. You're wearing socks. The socks are half wet by the end of the day, right? They're smelly. Maintenance becomes a problem. So there are a lot of these issues which we take for granted. We don't even think about it, right? Because that is what is available in the market. You don't have a choice. But what do you do when you're out there every day in terms of your apparel? You wear t-shirts, right?
Yeah.
T-shirts are comfortable, they are stretchy, they are soft on the skin, they are breathable, right? It keeps your body comfortable. That's effectively what the thing is. Why wouldn't you, if you look at it from first principles, why wouldn't I create a t-shirt for your feet?
Yeah.
Right? For the Indian tropical climate, that's what you need. You need as minimum barrier between your foot and the rest of the environment in terms of layers, so that you have breathability, so that your feet actually are not as sweaty as what they are normally. At the same time, it has to be 12 to 13 hours comfortable, so it needs the right cushioning as well. So how do you design a sneaker like that was the first thought in our head, right? So based on these three fundamental principles, it has to be something that you wear with casual dressing, it has to be something that you wear for 12, 13 hours a day, and it has to be something that matches the Indian tropical climate, right? So those were the starting points for problems that we identified, right? And then from there, we walked into saying, hey, what is the right solution? And then we designed the shoe from scratch. We sat down and said, okay, if I have to make a t-shirt, what is that material that goes into the shoe? The problem is, if I take this cloth and put it into the shoe, it will start tearing because the scuffing is very high, right? So you need a different method, you need a different fiber, you need a different way of knitting those sneakers, right? So a lot of engineering goes into that. Similarly, when you talk about cushioning, if you have a sports shoe typically has a lot of bounce, right? Because when you're running, it is an impact load. Very engineering terminology, but effectively, almost 2 times your body weight falls on the shoe every time you're jumping or landing on it with a force, right? It needs to sustain that load, right? So typically, what they do is they add something called a bounce or a springy kind of a this thing in the sole, engineering in the sole. Look at the Adidas Ultra Boost or Ultra Bounce. They have that characteristic, right? right? So it will give you a spring, and that will help you propel forward, and that will help you lose less energy when you're running, right? So that's what the performance shoes are engineered for. Whereas if you look at shoes that you're just going to walk in, you're going to stand in, what you really need is a mattress. When you're sleeping, you need something that takes your weight, just gives you a little bit of that cushion, and holds you without really buckling or without really being too firm, right? So a sports shoe is actually too firm when you're walking in it. It is because it is built for twice that load, right? So we said, okay, then we will have to play with the sole, the insole construction in order to make that cushioning right in terms of like a mattress, right? So airy on the top, cushiony in the bottom, and super lightweight is the third thing, right? You wear boots and you tell me at the end of the day how it feels. Even somebody who is less than 25 years old who has a lot of energy will feel tired at the end of the day with those boots, right? You really want something that is really lightweight if you're wearing it for 12, 13 hours, right? So that is the third aspect of it which we engineered. We said we cannot make a shoe more than 500 grams a pair. That is the maximum that we can go, right? So that was the challenge that we put to our product team, and that's how we came. Even now our shoes are less than 400 grams a pair, right? So effectively, less than a glass of water is what we call it, right? So these are the things that we put as starting points for creating a shoe, and that's why our shoes are very distinct. When we look at fibers as well, the reason why we chose bamboo is because we are the first brand in India and third in the world to launch bamboo as a fiber. It's very hard to play with. I'm wearing a bamboo t-shirt. The t-shirt is very, very soft, right? Bamboo is usually used to make underwear. The problem with that is it tears very fast. The same problem exists, right? So you need to blend it. You need to play with the fiber and the knitting structure to make it resistant enough to put in a shoe. Right, so that's where a lot of the engineering came in. But bamboo is moisture wicking. It is very soft on the skin. You can actually feel the temperature drop. Right, you can feel 2 to 3 degrees lower. Your feet being 2 to 3 degrees lower in temperature when you wear it. So that was the tropical climate aspect of it, which we tried to solve. Right, so even when we do polyester sneakers, we open up the knit structures so that it is very porous, so that you can actually feel the air going through. Right, so those are the kind of things that we endeavor to do in order to build for that urban lifestyle and tropical climate. And I, at this point in time, I don't know if other brands are really focusing on such a value proposition. And I think that value proposition exists, right? That hypothesis is there. We have tested that hypothesis and we know that exists. So slowly, when you wear a flathead sneaker, right, what really happens is every day when you go to open your shoe closet and want to pick among the 3 sneakers that are out there, this will slowly start becoming subliminally. It will start becoming your everyday shoe.
Go-to.
Right? So that is our thing. Exactly. It will become the go-to sneaker. 80% of the time you will wear that, right? So that's what we want to be. We want the share of your shoe closet, right? We want to be that shoe that is picked up 5 times out of 7, right? So that's the vision of Flatheads, if you will. So we build all-day sneakers suitable for the Indian urban lifestyle and work and tropical climate. So that's the vision statement for Flatheads.
Okay. And I've seen the tagline, ridiculously comfortable shoes. That's a very clear way of communicating anything that you want to get across to the people. Talking about getting the message across to people, marketing this particular brand. I mean, like you said, it's not been that long that it is already an established thing in any case. How big of a challenge or a task has it been so far? Especially because it comes with a lot of awareness impetus on that.
Yeah. That is the toughest part of building a brand, to be honest. Right? Telling the story that in a way that it resonates with the audience, keeping the messaging simple but powerful enough that people actually, pause and reflect and then say, "Oh, okay, this is something that is genuinely what I need." Right? It is not an express need; it's a latent need. Right? It exists in the market, but people don't know it yet. So there is a lot of awareness building to be done there. So initial stages, what we really did was combined online and offline in terms of our marketing message. So we did a lot of roadshows, got people to try the shoes out in their offices. We used to be in urban flea markets, in co-working spaces, in IT parks, just getting people to try them out. And guess what? 1 out of 3 people who came to our store just wore it and they said, "Wow, I just want to buy it right now." Right? So we used to convert more than 30% of the audiences who walked into the store into the kiosk that we used to put up. Right? So obviously all that changed during the pandemic. So there was a huge challenge there in terms of communicating and building awareness. We had to pivot also because our initial proposition of all-day work and fun really didn't exist because work doesn't exist anymore. People are still sitting at home, right? So then it was back to the drawing board. We had to, there were a lot of survival questions saying, did we launch at the right time? Is this ever going to get back to normal at all? What's going on? But then the fundamental principles still exist, right? People still have 2 feet, which means they need footwear. Just that the use case has changed, right? So then you look at what do they do when they're working from home. Do they need comfortable slippers when they're working at home? Do they need something that you use in that 2-kilometer radius that you're in around your house for a quick grocery run, walking your dog, just every day you're doing your 10,000 steps, right? So a lot of those become the use cases that you will focus on rather than saying work sneakers, right? So then, and the engineering of the shoe remains the same. It is still 12, 13 hours comfortable. It is still used for walking all through the day. It is still meant for the Indian tropical climate. But the use case and the communication changes a little bit. So then we pivoted to say work from home sneakers. We built work from home line, which was a set of loafers, a set of sliders, a set of mules that people could just slip on and do a quick run, quick walk, quick jog, or just walk around the house. So the product portfolio changed a little bit, but it all starts from the consumer insight, right? So then from there you build it out. So in terms of marketing, it has been a combination of doing performance marketing where you build the top of the funnel through this awareness kind of a message, and then communicate the business, the benefits of the shoe in the middle of the funnel, and then try to convert them at the end, the bottom of the funnel, right? So that setting that up in terms of a digital campaign has been something that we do. We had entrepreneurs try our shoes and start talking about it in terms of testimonials. So building trust. We have more than 4,000 reviews on our website, which we are rated more than 4.9 out there, because people really like the shoe and they really want to talk about the comfort that it offers. And we've been true to our value proposition. So those kind of things we are doing, building awareness. We are rolling out a referral campaign with our customers in order to get them to talk about our shoes and get other people to adopt it, right? Because they are ultimately, if they like the shoe, they are our evangelists. That's how our brand will grow. Right. So those kind of things we are doing. Now we are starting to establish an emotional connection with our audience. We are just crafting out a new brand identity to launch. While there is functional aspect of being ridiculously comfortable, bata bhi bahut hai comfortable, right? So comfort is almost hygiene. So you really need to step up the game in terms of why do you exist and why you are important to a person beyond just the functional benefit, right? So we are rolling out a campaign with Unalike as our message. Right. So standing for the unconventional in you, for the passion that you have beyond the 9 to 5 that you do, right? For the the uniqueness in you or the idiosyncrasies that you possess, which is unique to you. So that's what we stand for. That is the emotional message that we are crafting right now, and you will see a lot more of that brand identity conversation happening over the next 2 to 3 months at least, as we launch the brand identity. So there is a lot of work to be done. There is a lot of work in progress, but it's very early days in the brand, to be honest.
Very fair, very fair. So I know for a fact that you've had this very sports enthusiastic side over your college days and all. I think you were quite involved with basketball. Any interest in going into the sports side of things eventually, or you're just talking about the comfort and all day wear type at this
So performance shoes are a very different engineering challenge, right? So somebody like a Nike has been working on it, or an Adidas has been working on it for almost 100 years now, right? So it's a very different game when you start stepping into the performance category. You cannot be good enough. You have to be best in class if you are a D2C brand, right? So playing a game of saying I am a cheaper version of Nike works very well when you're HRX, but it may not really work when you're trying to build your own D2C brand. Right. So that we believe that's a harder challenge to overcome. Casual and lifestyle is a space where we can build better from first principles. Building an R&D effort for a performance shoe is a lot more of a challenge, is what we feel. There are material innovations that need to be done. both on the upper and the sole,
Yeah.
in order to make that happen and stuff like that. So there's a lot of investment that goes into it as well. I'm not ruling that out right now. You never know. 3 years down the line, we might get into a performance category as well. Again, there we would be a jogging shoe, for example, something that
Okay.
casual jogger who wants to finish his fitness routine every day
Yeah.
would wear. But I may not get into hardcore performance running or marathon running kind of shoes. So that space might be something that we might look at leisure, if you will.
Athleisure, yeah.
Yeah, but hardcore sports, I don't think so. Not at this point in time.
Okay. Okay. Very well. So I'll just try and wrap up with one final question. Since we are the next big brand, what is the next big thing for Flatheads over the next couple of years?
Launching our brand identity is first and foremost on our radar, and that's going to happen now. Right, we have to establish ourselves as an urban lifestyle brand. Right, so there you need to be very sharp in your messaging and your positioning when you go and talk to the audience. I think we have created a good product which people like. Now the brand messaging needs to be right. So that is the biggest thing that we are embarking on now. The second piece is building our position in the market in terms of channels, right? So we sell most of our shoes on our own website. We understand our consumer very well. But if you need to start thinking scale, you need to expand your channel presence as well, right? So growing on marketplaces with the right positioning, making sure that we don't dilute our brand while we go there, right? So that's a challenge that we need to take up and that we need to grow. Incidentally, we have started launching in the international markets as well. So Made in India for the world is one of the visions that we have. Right, it's high time Indian brand starts going global, and our DNA we've built from day one as a brand that adheres to global standards. Right, so we didn't have to do any additional engineering specifications or anything like that when we decided to launch in the US, because our shoes are already there in terms of the quality that they need. Right, so launching internationally is one big aspect of expanding the business that we will go after much more aggressively in the next year.
I really hope all of that happens and in the manner that you are hoping for it. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for taking us through the Flatheads journey, and I wish you all the very best for the journey ahead.
Thanks, Sujay. This was great chatting up with you. Thanks for the questions; they were quite insightful. They forced me to think a little bit before I answered, so that's well appreciated. I hope your audience gets good value out of it.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. Thank you so much.